The comments and statements made within the show are the opinions of the commentators and their guests, have not been evaluated by the FDA, and are in no way attempt to diagnose, treat, mitigate, cure, or prevent any disease or illness. The contents of this show are not to be construed as medical advice. If you have a health condition or health concern, please contact a licensed, qualified healthcare practitioner.
Hi everyone, I'm Nan.
And I'm Tom, and this is a Supplement Super Sleuth.
That'll be me, and the herbal storyteller.
And that definitely would be me. And together, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain of the natural products industry.
We'll be sharing naturals in the news, dispelling lots of myths, interviewing key players in the industry, and highlighting our favorite herbs and supplements.
So with that, let's pull back that curtain and see what's there.
Hi there, friends. I wanted to take just a little bit of a minute to explain why I'm revisiting St. John's Wort. I wanted to give a lot of people an opportunity to hear this particular part of the podcast again. Also, it's connected with my blog, which is called Herb of the Month. Usually with Herb of the Month, I split it into two parts. The first part is the history, identification, general use. And then the second part is clinical use and research of the herb. And so in order to make this available to a lot of people, I decided to use the podcast as an opportunity to do the second part of the Herb of the Month blog. So we're going to start with St. John's Wort. Even though it's already been done, I wanted to make sure that people felt really comfortable with St. John's Wort, how to use it, when not to use it, and have a place on the website to go. So I'm doing it again, folks, right? And giving you all an opportunity to listen really closely to St. John's Wort and in the podcast, and also to go and reference it on the website for the blog. So I hope this is really helpful. We're going to be doing this every single month as an extension of my Herb of the Month blog. So www.watersedgewellness.com if you'd like to go and read the other Herb of the Month blogs that are there. Okay, take good care and enjoy this podcast.
So I think it's time for our music. And this is our favorite thing.
Favorite things. Yeah.
And we get to talk about herbs and supplements that we use ourselves, that we use on people that we're working with in order to help them in the most natural way possible. And we love this segment because these are things that we use. It's like, woohoo, we like them.
All right. So one of my favorite things is Hypericum perforatum, also known as St. John's Wort. And this herb is, first of all, it's beautiful. And I often see it growing where I take the dogs for a walk. It's a 5-petaled yellow flower perennial. It's called a weed, but I can't even use that word. I think that that's disrespectful. It's common to Western United States, Europe, Asia. I see it growing here in New England, everywhere. If you look at the flowers, there's a small black dot that when you rub it between your fingers, you get a red stain. And that red pigment contains hypericin and hyperforins. So a lot of people have heard of hypericin. Of course, Hypericum perforatum is the Latin for the plant, but there's also hyperforins, or chemical constituents that have been found to be very active when you use the plant. Held up to the light, the leaves of the plant display a number of very bright translucent dots. And that's where the word perforatum comes from, because the leaves look like they've been perforated. And they're very cool to see when you pick up the plant and you hold the leaf up to the light. You see these like almost like they look like pores to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really a beautiful plant. It's cultivated in Europe, North and South America, Australia, and China. And the aerial parts of the plant are harvested during the flowering season, and they're used in modern standardized extracts. The name St. John's wort has its origin um, in Christian folk tradition. St. John's wort has a long history of use in traditional European herbal medicine. It was and continues to be used as topical treatments for wounds and burns. Um, and it is an excellent topical. Sometimes people will just put it, they'll uh, put the flowers in olive oil and they'll just use it on their body just to relax their muscles too.
And it's
It's,
amazing how it changes the color too. It becomes
oh
a
my God, it
beautiful dark
turns,
red.
oh, dark red. So you have these beautiful, delicate yellow flowers, and then you put it in the oil, and then you get this, like, it looks like this deep blood red oil. It's amazing. It's really kind of a amazing thing. Um, It's also been used as a folk remedy for your kidneys, stomach, and lung ailments. It was first noted as a remedy for melancholy and madness by Culpeper in 1652. So that was a long time ago. And Culpeper was, he was a doctor, but back then doctors were herbalists.
Mm-hmm.
Dioscorides, the foremost physician of ancient Greece, as well as Pliny and Hippocrates, recommended the herb for a number of ailments, including sciatica and the bites of poisonous spiders and snakes. Okay, if you say so. In the 5th century BCE, the Greek physician Hippocrates was one of the first to document in writings the therapeutic uses of St. John's wort. And since then, the time during this more modern time, the Swiss physician Paracelsus in 1540 used it to treat mental disorders, and mostly they called it melancholy, but we call it mild depression.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mild to moderate
rose
depression.
mild to moderate depression. They call it melancholy. I call it the blues.
Yeah.
It rose from virtual obscurity in the US to become the 5th best-selling dietary supplement in mainstream retail stores in the US after major media coverage of clinical research documenting its relatively safe and efficacy for treating mild to moderate depression. So since 1979, there have been more than 35 controlled human clinical studies of St. John's wort extracts for the treatment of mild to moderate depression. And 2 meta-analyses have documented the relatively safe and suggested probable efficacy of this phytomedicine. St. John's wort is prescribed frequently by healthcare providers in Germany, where approximately 130 million daily doses containing hypericum were prescribed in 1999. So it's very popular in Europe, especially Germany. And St. John's wort preparations have also been used in traditional European herbal medicine for antimicrobial and skin healing purposes. And it's also great for aging skin too. You can take it as a tea, alcohol tincture, essential oils, and tablets using either the plant in its crude form or standardized preparations. So some uses, some internal uses: mild to moderate depression. External uses: wound healing, first degree burns, muscle pain, and myalgia. Other potential uses: seasonal affective disorder, mental depression related to certain seasons, obsessive compulsive disorder, menopause, fatigue, pediatric nocturnal incontinence, premenstrual syndrome, and it can work depending upon the person and if St. John's wort is matches that person's constitutional issues. So St. John's wort has a you would think if it was used in with burns that would have this cooling effect, but it's not. It's a little neutral to mildly warming, but it is a vulnerary. It is incredibly healing. So part of the way that it works internally is that it helps to your gastrointestinal tract to heal. Now remember, your skin and your GI tract are the same kind of tissue. It's called epithelial tissue. And there's a lot to say about how when your gut is off, your mood will be off. So St. John's wort has that healing ability internally as it has externally. And so with that, there's a mechanism of action. So if you're taking a fluid extract, a 1-to-1 extract, like an alcohol extract, it's 2 milliliters twice a day. Dry extract would be 300 milligrams of a 5 to 7 extract 3 times a day. And a standardized extract would be standardized to 3% hypericin or 4.5 hyperforin. And you want both hypericin and hyperforin marked on your standardized extract. And that's 900 milligrams daily in 3 divided doses. Generally speaking, I say that with the caveat that you should be working with a clinical herbalist or a naturopath who's trained in herbs, or a chiropractor or nutritionist trained in herbs and herbalism. So don't do this alone if you are unfamiliar with herbs, but know that because of the European Union, there are very strict and organized dosing and recommended serving sizes per 150-pound adult of St. John's wort. Okay, so the onset response to St. John's wort is similar to that for conventional antidepressants. It has been, as an herb, it has been scrutinized and compared with conventional antidepressants over the past 20 years. It takes 2 to 4 weeks, or as long as up to 6 weeks, to build in the system. And to prevent relapse, antidepressants should be continued at full therapeutic doses for at least 6 months after remission. In 1999, most of the research said that there were no known contraindications for healthy individuals or pregnancy and lactation. No known restrictions. The adverse effects are photosensitization in some people, which means that their skin becomes much more sensitive to sunlight. Not everybody goes through that when they take St. John's wort, but quite a few do. And it can occur with excessive dosages, so over 1,800 milligrams a day. So drug interactions, those of you who are on pharmaceutical antidepressants should not take St. John's wort without the express support of your physician or your practitioner. It can interact with SSRI uptake inhibitors and that incredible class of antidepressants. So please be careful there. Don't just run out and think that it'll make your antidepressant work better for you. You really should be having a conversation with a professional. If you are on an antidepressants and you are also considering St. John's wort. It can also interact with oral contraceptives, making them less effective. Anticoagulant drugs like warfarin, making them more. You can get bruising and other kinds of issues with them. So be careful there. The asthma drug theophylline, you have to be careful with that as well. And the anti-HIV drug indinavir. So please be careful there. Make sure before you start taking St. John's wort that you have a conversation with your practitioner prior to use. Also with cardiac medication, digoxin, do not take St. John's wort. Okay, abruptly stopping St. John's wort after prolonged use may increase the concentration of other drugs in the person. So please, again, be careful. Avoid alcohol. You really should. If you're taking St. John's wort for mood, you should avoid alcohol. It has been shown to potentially act with different kinds of drugs. And it's really, really important that if you're on any kind of pharmaceutical, that you speak to your practitioner prior to considering it. So I love this herb. For people who have a little bit of sad, when the sun starts to go away, it's like having sunshine on the inside. St. John, it really is. It is just this beautiful sunshine herb. That's what it is to me. When I look at it, it just makes me smile. It reminds me of the sun. And it can really help you to feel like it's okay that the sun isn't here. Like today, it's so grim and overcast and icky here in New England. Some of my favorite research on Hypericum perforatum are on the mild depression with somatic symptoms. There's one all the way back from 1994. It was Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry and Neurology, and they did a randomized placebo-controlled double-blinded study with 39 patients with depression and other kinds of somatic symptoms that were related to depression. And Hypericum extract the therapy lasted for 4 weeks. The dosage was 300 milligrams 3 times a day at the onset of the study, as well as after 2 and 4 weeks. And the criteria was analyzed, and what they said was 70% of the patients treated with it were free of symptoms after 4 weeks. Typical symptoms of the depression: lack of activity, tiredness, fatigue, disturbed sleep, feeling blue. They were especially responsive, and in no cases were any undesirable effects observed. So that was a favorite of mine. And there are others that I really love that we're all testing, both hypericins and hyperforins, for that mild to moderate antidepressant. Now, as you can see, there was a high dose scheduled 3 times a day. So I would say 300 milligrams 3 times a day. You have to remember to take it. Most people can get 2 in, right? They can get the morning and then get the
evening, right?
night.
That middle of
But
the day.
that middle of the day is a tough one. And I know, but if you can do it and you can get your blood levels high with St. John's wort, then you can back down to 2 a day, for kind of keeping you steady through the winter.
Right.
It's
That loading
lovely.
can occur for the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's pretty great. There's another one that I really loved, which is St. John's wort in mild to moderate depression, the relevance of hyperforin for clinical efficacy, 1998, Department of Psychiatry, University of Munich, Germany, in a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, multi-center clinical efficacy and safety of 2 different extracts of St. John's wort were investigated in 147 males and female outpatients suffering from mild to moderate depression, according to the DSM-4 criteria. Following a placebo run-in period of 3 to 7 days, the patients were randomized to one of 3 treatment groups. During the 42-day treatment period, they received 3 of 1 tablet of either placebo or Hypericum with hyperforins, or Hypericum with 5% hyperforin. So there were 3 different things. You either got a placebo, you got hyperforin with 5%, or Hypericum with 5%. And the Hypericum preparations were identical, and they only differed in their hyperforin content. Efficacy regarding depressive symptoms was assessed on the 7th day, the 14th day, the 28th day, and the 42nd day. The severity of the illness was also rated by the investigators within that period of time. The last observation of patients withdrawn from the trial prematurely was carried forward. At the end of the treatment day, the 42nd day, the patients receiving 5% hyperforin exhibited the largest reduction versus the smaller amount of hyperforin and the no St. John's wort at all. Okay, so knowing that you have a broad spectrum St. John's wort, not just standardized to hypericins, but including hyperforins and other aspects of the plant, that was the best way to take it. So, and that's what's really important here. And that's why I love that study, because again, it demonstrates the importance of whole herb,
The whole plant.
herb. The whole plant is what's important. Don't get so locked into it has to be 95% hypericins, because there are other active constituents in the plant of St. John's wort. So,
and nature has a balance. Nature
yes,
provides a balance. And sure, science wants to get instantaneous results, but
it does.
sometimes instantaneous results don't last, and they don't go as deep as they need to, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. So don't be led astray.
Okay, well, that's my little 2 cents on St. John's wort. Okay, so you're probably wondering who I am. I've had a complementary and alternative health and herbal clinic for more than 30 years, focused on difficult to treat conditions, and also have been a spokesperson and educator in the natural products industry for over 20 years. For some of you who are familiar with these companies, the more reputable and well-known companies in the industry were those that I had the great privilege of working with and for. My practice is full-time now, and over those many years, decades actually, I've been part-time, full-time, part-time, full-time, but now settling into full-time, absolutely. You can connect with me in person by going to my website at www.watersedgewellness.com. And there's a couple of those around the country. So I'm in Massachusetts. So make sure you're clicking on the right website. You'll be reaching out, or you can reach out to me through social media sites such as TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'll be doing this podcast now 4 times a month, sharing perspectives of natural health and healing. I might do interviews with key people and thought leaders, also other healers, naturopaths, natural vets, and it's a pretty wide range of people in the industry to get their perspectives and to share their wisdom. And if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to and like the Facebook page or Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or something, or visit me on the website. Share the podcast if it so inspires you, and share with your friends and family who you think might really find some interest. And I really would like to hear what you would like to hear about. If there's something in, that you've been wondering about, or might be a little confused about, or hearing a lot of different information, you'd like to get my take on it, please reach out. Let me know. I'm really happy to share what I may or may not know, or find somebody in the industry who's a knowledgeable expert. You can add your comments in any of the social media sites, and I will absolutely respond. And with that, I'll say take good care of yourself, and see you really soon. Until next time, I'm Nan.
And I'm Tom.
And we'll have more great topics and guests in the very near future. So join us right here as the Supplement Super Sleuth
and the Herbal Storyteller. Take another deep dive into the fascinating world of the natural products industry.
See you later.